Welcome to another Roar Rant here. I am Steve Deace, and the Detroit Lions are into training camp, the real part of camp. Guys are wearing pads, they're hitting. The season is just around the corner. The Hall of Fame game is this week. The Lions begin the preseason the following week, and then they kick off, amazingly. If I would have told you when the Lions were 1-8 that they were going to be the highlight team in the opening game of the following season, because of the excitement they had generated amongst the NFL. You'd have told me I was nuts. I wouldn't have even suggested it. It would have been so nuts. And yet here we are. They go up against, I'd just call them the standard, the Kansas City Chiefs, winners of 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. Or 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls. So let's get to it. Key takeaways for this could be the most important training camp the Lions have had as a franchise since Barry Sanders retired. And I think there are 5 key things to be looking for now, 5 key questions to get answers for over the coming month. All right, so number 1, while I am confident Jameson Williams' production will be replaced, and then some, by the positional upgrades at running back, who is going to replace that energy and leadership within the team as a whole? This is still one of the youngest rosters in the NFL. And what I think we've seen so far is it's going to be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And there was a noticeable dip in the defensive performance at camp when it was presumed he got hurt. And then it really took off again when he was able to return. So maybe he's going to be that guy, but it is important to have that guy because some guys that are going to be that guy in the future, like Aiden Hutchinson, for example, are still only in their second years. All right, so you're going to miss Jameson Williams from a leadership standpoint more than a production standpoint. And maybe CJG can step in and fill that void. Number 2. To that end, we have seen for decades that this franchise can get drunk on even a little bit of success and thus unable to sustain it. So is the chip still there after an offseason of having palm branches waved at you? Or did they read too much of their advanced press? I mean, can you think of a team in recent memory that has gotten more publicity coming off a season in which it didn't even make the playoffs than the Lions are getting and received all summer long, all offseason long? And there's a lot of factors for this. The last game of the regular season, that Sunday night game, they ended the Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay, and the whole country watched that. It was one of the highest rated games of the season. The charisma of the coach, and then the Lions have been a focal point in the last couple of drafts. And then I think there's, this is one of the only original franchises in the league that's never been to a Super Bowl. So I think there is some sympathy where that's concerned too, like almost wishing it into existence for this moribund fan base. So that's the only thing that gives me pause is the amount of hype we're receiving for just having a above 500 record. Now, granted, we did it in the way you don't typically do it. You don't typically start 1-8 and 9-8. Or 1-7 and then 9-8. You don't typically do it that way. We did. And we retained almost that entire roster. And the guys we lost, we pretty much replaced them all with upgrades. So, and then you look at the rest of the division. No Aaron Rodgers. The Bears are still rebuilding. The Vikings are kind of in this middle ground where they have to let guys go because they can't afford them under the cap, but there's still some decent talent there. So it's just an interesting predicament, and keeping that eye of the tiger, I think, will be the biggest challenge that Dan Campbell has in this camp. Number 3, Jared Goff, Pro Bowl quarterback last year, but what about the backup? If Goff misses a couple of games, that could be the difference in making the postseason or not. Is there another quarterback on the roster that can win a game or two, or do they need to bring one in? Now, early reviews for Nate Sudfeld have been pretty good, but Teddy Bridgewater, he visited camp last week. He actually has a winning record all time as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Dan Campbell would know him from their time in New Orleans together. I'd bring him in. This is not the season where it's championship or bust in the Lions program, but it's the season that gets you to that point that you're supposed to break through. I would take no chances. I would bring Teddy Bridgewater in as an insurance policy. You're going to keep 3 quarterbacks now anyway, with the new emergency quarterback rule. Hendon Hooker is going to start on the injured list. So I would absolutely bring Teddy Bridgewater in, even if that one game that he wins for you is the difference between 9-8, not making it, 10-7, winning the division. Number 4, Will Jameson Williams flash enough to make the coaches confident he is ready to become the player they traded up for upon his immediate return from suspension? Because I think he represents the team's ceiling all by himself. This is going to be a top 5 or 6 offense. The running game's going to be better. You've got Amon St. Brown as playing for a contract. And he's been a top 12 receiver in the NFL his first 2 years in the league. I think Sam Laporta, from what we're seeing, is a massive upgrade at tight end. So this is going to be one of the best. This is probably the best offensive line in the NFL that's not in Philadelphia. So Jameson Williams, what's the one thing missing? Who's the guy? Who's the Tyreek Hill that could take the top off the defense on any play that you have to respect? That's him. He represents the ceiling of the team. Without him, I think they could go 9-8, 10-7. But if he's anything like what he flashed at Alabama, now you're talking about vying for a top seed in the NFC. But we haven't seen that yet. In fact, his first padded practice as a Lion last week was not promising. So this is one of the key issues to watch in this camp. And then finally, number 5, the defense quietly and massively improved in the second half of last season. In fact, it was a top 10 defense in scoring defense from weeks 9 to 17 last year. It's also been given a massive talent infusion now the last 2 off seasons. So is this the year that Aaron Glenn can make them a consistently dependable unit? And here's why I think this matters. Teams are now going to have an entire off season of film on Ben Johnson in the offense. So they're going to find chinks in the armor. I mean, Ben Johnson's not the last son of Krypton. I mean, there's going to be a kryptonite. Even Superman had that. And so what happens if if the offense goes from 5th to 8th or 9th? Is the defense able to, that's the difference probably in winning a game and your win total. Can the defense make that up? Because again, that's probably the difference between going 9-8 again or going 10-7 and winning the division. So this is the year the talent is there. They finished strong. This is the year that this should be at the very least a dependable defense, even if it's not elite. So those are what I think are the big questions facing the Lions here in August during training camp. What do you think? Let us know in the comment section right here on the video. Remember to like, rate, subscribe, 5-star review, share with other Lions fans just like you. And we'll see you next time right here on Rant.